Hey, it's Dr. Nancy Zare and Darlene Petrie, and we're here again to present on Don't Be Fooled on LinkedIn. March is Fraud Prevention Month. So, Darlene, would you like to say a little bit more and introduce yourself and what it is you do?
Okay, so Darlene Petrie with Scam Prevention International. And one of the things, or well, many of the things that I do is to help people identify what to look for in order to decrease their risk of being scammed. And I say decreased because there is no such thing as 100%. And I always say that it is not a matter of if you're going to get targeted or scammed, it's a matter of when. And I think that that's why we're here today, because LinkedIn is one of those places where people thought and do think that this is a safe environment to be in and that there aren't that many scammers, but there are a lot of them out there and in many different capacities. Like they're looking for dates on LinkedIn. They're looking for helping people to find jobs, because they want all of your personal information and they want to buy your products, and not send you any products in return. They just want your money. They want your identification. So that's something that's really important, and that's why we're here, because this is March, and March every year is Fraud Prevention Month.
And I will also chime in and say that not all the scams are taking place on LinkedIn. In other words, they're grabbing your contact information, especially your email address, and the scam may be taking place through email, but they got your information from LinkedIn. So be aware that this is a common practice. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
just take a quick moment to introduce myself. Nancy Zare, the LinkedIn Whisperer, and I am a sales psychologist. I work with those smart entrepreneurs who want to increase sales without being salesy. So that's who we are. And of course, I'm concerned about LinkedIn. It's one of the major platforms where I personally prospect and meet with people, and it may be yours as well. So last week, Darlene, could you give a quick little summary or review of, maybe in just 1 minute, what we've covered while people are still getting on?
So last week we talked about the banner and your profile picture and making it so that it is, so that people know that you're not someone who is a fraudster, someone who's trying to take information. We want to make sure that you're protected, by knowing what to look for in the different things that could happen, that that show or identify that the red flags, so to speak, of what a fraudster would be, posting up there. So and the summary of it would be that it would be inconsistencies that don't, the banner and the profile picture don't match the rest of the profile.
So, talking about not matching, we're now going to talk about the actual name of the person, their credentials, and contact information. Contact information is a really good clue about where you're going to find fraud and scam. And also things like location, and especially the hashtags talks about, and there are a number of hashtags. So let's start with the name, Darlene. What have you noticed?
Well, I've noticed that in and this is, across all different social media platforms, is that often fraudsters will use two first names as an example. And I'm going to use the name that was chosen when I was scammed. The person's name was James, or stated his name was James Martin. So that was, and that's, the first and last name both are could be two first names, or Henry Gregg. Those, I see those names quite often. And it's not to say that your name, if you automatically have the name, two first names as your first and last names, those are just some of the identifying factors. And the other one is spelling of common names, but they spell them in an unusual way. So I'm going to say something like Mary Smith. So the name, Mary, they could spell it Merry because they're used to us saying Merry Christmas. They may not be, familiar with if they're from a different language. And Smith, Smyth. That way, it makes it harder for them to be identified on LinkedIn or in any social media platform. And so they like to use it so that their information isn't going to be found. And that alone could be an identifying red flag as well, because if you can't find any electronic trace of them being online, then you need to be cautious. Now, these aren't 100% proof, as there are many people, like I said, who have first names and last names, and there are many spellings of common names, of unusual names, but it can be a scammer's way that they're using this approach to make their identity seem legit and to avoid detection.
Yes, and of course, there are a lot of foreigners and names that we may not be familiar with. If people are coming from third world countries, and again, the name may be very unusual to you. So that brings us to credentials. And of course, here is where you definitely want to take a look at what are the credentials they're putting after their name. Some of them, of course, are things you easily recognize, for example, an MBA. But there are other initials, alphabet soup, that, yeah, you're laughing because alphabet soup is what they play on, that there are a lot of credentials out there, and maybe they don't exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So you do have to do your research, do type in those credentials, and ask, when you're putting that in. But also, you need to make sure that the degree that they are stating they have is actually provided by an institution that they say that they got these credentials from. And because I've seen many times where fake accounts have stated that they have a degree, and then when I went to check on the institution, the university or college that they went to, the institution didn't have that degree. Now, I know that it takes a lot of time to look up each of these accounts individually. And is it really necessary to look that closely? Well, I'm going to go out on the limb and say, I don't think we need to do that with each and every one of our connections. And I'm sure many people don't. But they do need to look closely if they're going to do business with that person. You don't want to be giving your personal information or your credit card number or ordering products online to someone that you have not researched.
Right. And so that kind of brings us now to the idea of their contact information. And it's very interesting. I mean, there are people who basically have nothing but a name and their LinkedIn profile, which is obviously doesn't give you any information at all. And then there are people who have an email account, which is very vanilla and very generic. And that might be a red flag too. Am I right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it is true. With the contact information, like you do want to look and make sure that there is more information given. The less information, the more suspicious that you should be, or the more cautious that you are. When I'm looking at this section, if I don't find any information, I think two things mainly: they don't want to do business, or they could be a fraudster. But mostly, I think of it as a red flag. These bad actors don't want to be located, so they don't want to provide any clue of any information. They just want to give as little as possible in their profiles. And I'd like to give an example actually of that because it happened to me this week. I was on a in a group, and this group had 78,000 connections. And on the LinkedIn fake account that came up, the group is a legit group, and it's a networking group. And in this group, the profile that I believed was fraudulent stated that they were recruiting employers or employees online. Then they gave a link to the Telegram app connection to contact them. They didn't send them to their LinkedIn profile, but I checked out his LinkedIn profile and there was no information, no photo. It was a blank banner. And the salary that was actually listed in the posting was, fairly reasonable. So, it wasn't an outlandish amount that people would think, oh, yeah, right. It did make sense. But this could be a trap for people who are looking for employment. They weren't directed to the LinkedIn profile, so they wouldn't know that there was no information and that this person could have possibly been. So when you're in your groups, like in your group section and looking at them, do make sure that you go back to the person's profile before you start clicking on any links. And yes, I have to say I did report that. Now, I don't know 100% if that was a fake account or not. I don't know. But if I'm suspicious of it, and if anyone is suspicious of it, I urge all people to take the time to report the profiles, because it is better safe than sorry. And you're protecting the people who are on your list of connections, and you're protecting the world of LinkedIn members.
Yeah, and the other thing you might also take a note is that there could be a very big disconnect between what the person does and that contact information. In my case, where the scam that I had a couple of weeks back, it was a banker, and yet the email address was not the bank.
Mhm.
So there was something very odd and off about that. Let's move into location. And what is it that we can detect about location?
So a person should verify the location, and does the location make sense to where they are, as to where they're doing business. So you ask yourself, does the person's job history, education, and information in the contact information section, does that align with the claimed location that they put? And also, if they have put in a phone number, is the number that they've listed in their contact information, does the country code or does the phone number match where they say they are? I know that sometimes, the people don't put in their phone number, so it's hard to say. But it's always really important to make sure that the information matches with what they say.
Yeah, my phone is very good about identifying what it says is potential spam. And what was interesting is yesterday I got a call twice from the same number. When I went to text back that number, guess what? It was the voicemail gave me an 866 number, but the number calling me was a different area code. So there was a disconnect going on. And these are the things that we kind of overlook, but I can't tell you how important it is for you to be aware of and notice these disconnects, because that is what the spammer is hoping you ignore, is all these little things that indicate that they've put together quickly some platform and some message that is supposed to attract you. So we're now going to move into hashtags. These are what people talk about. And, we can search on hashtags. Hence, that's why this can be a very interesting way to lure you. Tell us more about that, Darlene.
So in the hashtags, and that's usually in the talks about sections. Not everybody fills this section out, but if they do, check to see if the hashtags make sense. Do they align with what the person in the profile says they do? Does it align with their profession, or are they simply using popular trending hashtags that's going to increase their visibility onto their platform? Make sure that the hashtags again are relevant to the actual work or work experience. Now, scammers or fake profiles may use hashtags to appear more legitimate, to attract attention, so that their profiles or their posts, do get more recognition. But they use the hashtags to attract potential victims, hence using the hashtags um, that are trending. But the other ones to look out for are ones that would be like hashtag work from home, or hashtag make more money online, or hashtag lottery winner. This one gets clicked on quite often, actually. Hashtag free iPhone, the word free in there, or investment opportunity. You have to be careful when you're clicking on those, because if you I mean you can click on them, but look and see what it says. And like I said, they're using that as a means to up their numbers in their contacts as well.
Good. Well, we have basically covered the first part of the profile that we're likely to see when you tune into LinkedIn. We're going to continue to delve deeper into profiles. There's a lot that we have to share next week, same time, same place. We're going to be talking about the highlights section, the featured section, which is where, as you know, you can have some very specific content that gets seen. Also the activities, if they're, some people are active, some not. And then here's my special favorite, is the about section. The about section is a real juicy place where you can learn a lot about that individual. Any last words, Darlene?
I always have last words. And while you're my last words, I want to include this time around is, if you're thinking about your mutual connections and you are a victim of someone who is being targeted, do think of them as well, because those scammers are going to be connecting with them. They're going to be saying things like, "Oh, hey, let's connect. I know you know Nancy." So those are things that you really need to also watch out for. And my last words are, do you have to be cautious with everyone on your connection? It would be nice, but no. If you are doing business with them, absolutely a big yes. If you're going to be referring them or making a recommendation, then yes. Do your research on anyone you have in that you're going to be connecting with it. And if it seems too good to be true, then it is, probably is. And don't click on links. Check out the person's profile and search their website by typing in the URL yourself. No copy and pasting.
Yeah, all good ideas, because again, especially when we refer people, or if we have our profile setting whereby other people can see our contacts, in essence, they could be using our name and our reputation to gain access to the people within our network. So a word of caution. Again, you don't have to be constantly on the alert, but the red flags are there if you take a moment to look. And so, to your sales success, we will resume this part 3 next Tuesday, same time, same place. To your sales success.
Thank you. Thank you.